think you have to calibrate it against need, and it has to be part of a larger plan. And it has to provide all of the pieces. To take poverty on, you have to do all things on all fronts at all times. Because everything, as my friend David Crombie often said so truthfully and famously, is connected to everything else. So, I mean, addictions and mental health, what the challenges are there. If you want to get into detox, you have to get into detox right away. But you have to have housing, you have to have a safe place to call home and through that process. You finish detox, and you need to get into recovery or treatment, you need to do that right away. You can't wait 2 weeks, and people have to wait 6 weeks. If you're going to get back into sort of adjusting to community and restoring your independence, and that sometimes it's hard if you've been away from living in an apartment, do that. This is the complex level of support when we have, it's estimated right now by the province, I'm not sure whose numbers are the most real, but about 3,000 people in that. 150 units is going to get swallowed up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
150 is not enough.
No.
That's it.
I'd say at least twice that to start. And that's going to be a challenge, I appreciate. But I think you have to benchmark not about what was, but about what is enough to really change. And in addition to housing, all the other things that we talked about. I mean, our community health centers are so massively underfunded right now. And their underfunding is costing us a lot of government tax dollars for other things. So that's why I'm saying, like, these things have to all work together, because you have to flip the ecosystem. You can't just do a one-off.
Okay.
Very much so, but when I talk to we have to look at total mobility needs of a community, right? It's not just buses, but if you've got a few kids, but sometimes transit is a limited option for you in your family if you've got 3 or 4 kids, for example, and you're on a very low income. Buses don't always work, and you have to go grocery shopping or something like that. So we're very blessed in the city to have Winnipeg City Co-op, which I would like to build into part of this idea of more of a mobility authority citywide eventually. So that if you're a mom and you live on Arlington Street in the West End and you can't afford to buy a car, it would be great if we could actually have a discount low-income bus pass, but we would also negotiate with Peg City Co-op. So that day that mom might have to go to the grocery store, might have a need to get 3 or 4 kids around, that she or he, or in the case of the dad, in cases as well, though my experience is more often the mom, is that they've got the ability very affordably to use a Peg City Co-op car without really very much cost at all to take care of their needs. Like, I think we have to sit down and talk about low-income barriers to mobility. Transit is part of the solution, but accessing a vehicle affordably for a family with a very marginal income is equally important. So that's why I think this idea of, well, you can't do everything. So yes, would I be in favor of a significantly discounted transit pass down into an affordable level that's, sort of, I would call it, we have rent geared to income. I look at something like transit geared to income by category. So if you're under a certain low level of income, to do that. How we would set that up, I'm not sure exactly, but I'd like the idea of it. I would certainly build it into the planning process, and I would find a way to achieve very great reductions in transit. Part of it because there's just so many people, when they can't afford it, just get on the bus, and we have no way, realistically, of asking transit folks to police fares. It's just, it's like, what do you do on a bus when you're driving a bus and 4 people get on and they can't pay and they won't pay, or sometimes people just don't. Right now, it's happening right now. It's just happening in a way that is causing a lot of stress for people and is somewhat chaotic. So clearly, if we could get an affordable pass.
I said the other day, because it's 7% or 11.5% or 12%, or should it be 40%? I'm a little hesitant to say that it should be a particular percentage. I think the challenge is, that people are, the defund the police discussion gets quite, can trigger some real culture wars and end up with something that is not entirely helpful. The refund all of these services is really important. And when I walk around, I've been meeting with the community health executive directors. We had 3 rounds of calls, I think, in writing this mental health and addictions piece, where I suggested that we co-locate paramedics near community health centers. It's just the scale of what's required there is so far beyond it. And, you know, I tried to be very concrete, so I've said no helicopter. Well, you know, I'm going to be very specific about the things that I think should be not in the police budget. Because right now, if you say 10% under the current system, they get to decide what the 10% is. So I'm nervous about that narrative in the context of the city. Not that I don't agree with the spirit of shifting, but I think you should be specific. So I've said drones, not helicopters. That will save several $1 million. I've said a number of other things that I think in the model of policing cities should set that guy. So if we went to a community policing model, we would probably save about that. You know, a lot of this police spillover has now gone to firefighters and to paramedics. So you have to look at the larger pool of where that money's going if you're really trying. If the intent, which is what, as I understand it, is that you're trying to move money from the back end loaded to the front end loaded things. So the spirit of it I agree with. The mechanism I'm not entirely sure of. I would want it more elaborated because I think we're picking a bit of a number, but I think the spirit of it. But I think when I talked about this governance review I did, and when I'm talking about rethinking the mandate and charter of the city, getting rid of the police board, that is all about to liberate money from these sort of pockets that they're locked into where the city council can't move money around from police to police anywhere, to unlock all of that so that we're actually doing a community-based comprehensive strategy on racism, on safety, on violence, on poverty that is all interlinked. And then we build a new budget from the bottom up rather than having any kind of assumption about what money is entitled to what groups. But certainly I believe something probably more substantial